You are listening to In Conversation with Jennie and Mark.
Hello, everyone. I am the Reverend Jennie Adams from Holy Trinity Church, South Kensington.
And I am the Reverend Mark Adams from St Margaret's Church, Barking.
Hello.
Hello, was that what I was supposed to say? Was I supposed to say anything else?
I thought you'd say more, but hi.
Okay. Well, this is In Conversation with Jennie and Mark. Not with Lindsay this week. If you were listening a couple of weeks ago, we had Lindsay with us. Sorry, it's just back to us two again today. And we've been away for a week, so that's one that wasn't my last week. We're back now. We're ready and raring to go, aren't we, Jennie?
We are indeed raring to go.
Raring to go. Yeah. Okay.
We are looking at this week's Gospel reading, Luke 18, 1 to 8, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right. There it is.
And if you put it on screen, I'll read it and we can get straight into it.
I'll get straight into it.
Okay, the parable of the widow and the unjust judge. Then Jesus told them a parable about their need to pray always and to not lose heart. He said, in a certain city there was a judge who neither feared God nor had respect for people. In that city there was a widow who kept coming to him and saying, grant me justice against my opponent. For a while he refused, but later he said to himself, though I have no fear of God and no respect for anyone, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will grant her justice, so that she may not wear me out by continually coming. And the Lord said, listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God grant justice to his chosen ones who cry to him day and night? Will he delay long in helping them? I tell you, he will quickly grant justice to them. And yet, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? So,
Yes. Have you got questions?
I have one comment to make.
Okay, you start off with your one comment then, and we'll see whether we can make a podcast out of it.
Simply because I've read a lot of commentaries. Well, I say a lot. Three.
Three? Okay, well that's one more than me, so there you go.
And they've talked about all sorts of things, but I feel that they ventured off the very first saying, the first thing that is said, which is Jesus told his disciples a parable to show them that they should always pray and not give up. And that is what the parable is to show them. That's what it's about. We could talk about lots of other things, but I feel some of the commentaries I've read kind of tried to find a different meaning to it.
Okay, well, shall we stick with that meaning?
It's very clear to me that that's what the story is about.
Okay. So what else is there to say?
Yeah, just keep praying. Don't give up.
Okay, well, there you go then. That's fine. Although I guess that is one of those things, is it not? That is easier said than done.
Yes, and I suppose there are things about, depends what you're praying for.
Okay, go on.
Oh, just that some prayers never get answered. And some of them just don't get answered, and that's a whole different ballgame to think of. But I mean, I could pray every day that I had a nice new Ferrari persistently, but I'm not sure that God is ever going to grant me a nice new Ferrari. But I think we have to be slightly careful with this. He'll give you whatever you want if you're just persistent.
Yeah, but to be fair, that's not what Jesus is saying. She's praying specifically for justice, isn't she? And vindication. So that's what I read, that it's really about vindication against her opponent, against whoever it is who's oppressing her. So it's not about just praying for Ferraris, is it? It's about justice.
I think it is. I think it could be dangerous to go down that route too much.
Okay. Why do you think that?
Because it's still about praying and not giving up.
Okay.
I don't think it really, the ones I read, or one in particular, then went on to be about acting for justice, and it's all about prayer is action, and it just went a bit too far, in my opinion. Not
Okay,
that
so what do
these
you think
aren't
it?
good things,
Okay, so
but I
what do you
think
think
it
it is
is
saying
about
then?
prayer.
So what do you think it is saying?
That we should pray for justice and not give up.
Okay, so why do you think
Okay,
Jesus uses this particular parable way of teaching us that? What's going on with the
okay,
parable?
let's just go back to one bit though. When he says, uh, so she won't eventually wear me out with her coming. That's not, from what I can gather, not a very good translation of it.
Okay.
It it's something about it translates to so she won't give me a black eye. So basically, which would be not just physically hurt, but also an embarrassment to everybody for him to everybody else.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's
Actually,
it,
because I one of the commentaries that I read, Tom Wright's one, translated it as that. Was that the same commentary or a
no,
different
I
one?
was
Okay, so
looking
obviously
for
that is a
that.
yeah.
Mm,
Okay, that's quite good, isn't it? So she's not going to give me a black eye. Yeah, I did notice that when I was reading through the Tom Wright translation, actually, that he'd used that, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. What does
mm.
it say in the
Well,
one?
they picked up on that because that was more that it would be embarrassing him for him to have it. It's like an outward sign that he hadn't done what he was supposed to do. So it's
Yeah,
not just that she's persistent, she's actually showing him up for who he is. And that's
yeah.
why
So
he
often in these parables, the judge or the landowner or the is a picture for God, isn't it? And in one sense, this is
yeah.
a analogy of prayer, isn't it? That Jesus is deliberately using. But what are we saying then about God in this parable?
Well, that is an unjust judge. Isn't it a bit more like the birds in the air that do not worry? If he closes, will he do so much more for you? Isn't it? If even the unjust judge can understand that this needs to be done or will give in, God will do so much more be for you because he's just.
Yeah, I think that is what's going on. Though it still interests me is why Jesus would use that kind of method of teaching. I mean, you're right. Jesus does do it quite a lot, doesn't he? It's quite a lot of the how much more then, I mean,
Yeah, I think,
top of my
if
head, it's like how,
even this evil person can do right, then obviously God's going to do it much more. I think that's a fair
yeah.
comment.
If you ask your father for a stone, will he give you a bread? Will he give you a stone? Or that it's to sort of say how much more will God give good
Mm.
things to those who ask him. It is a similar kind of idea. I'm interested in why Jesus uses that kind of teaching method, though. I mean, is there a bit of an element here that actually Jesus is also recognizing that prayer is hard and you will sometimes feel like giving up and and maybe God will even appear sometimes to be like the unjust judge and you've got to sort of keep beating the door down. I don't know.
So what sort of things would we be praying for now? If we were to take this on board, what would we be praying for? Because we sat in church on Sunday to looked down the little leaflet they gave me for what they were praying for and went, oh look, that prayer's been answered. Because that church were praying for the end of war in the Holy Land, weren't they? I thought it was really interesting. They weren't praying for peace in the Holy Land. They prayed for the end of war. Um,
Right. Well, I mean, okay, there's been a ceasefire. There's still a lot to pray for, though, isn't there? And it's been
yeah,
going on
I'd say
a
there's
long
been
time.
the end to the war. There is a
It's been going
peace,
a
which is
long
why I
time.
was really interested that actually
Yeah.
their prayer would be answered.
But we do
Um,
pray for that, don't we? And we have been praying consistently for the end to the war in, in the Middle East, the end to the war in Ukraine. We keep praying for that. And it's interesting to know to what extent, have our prayers now been answered? That's an interesting question. That in one sense, they have, haven't they? Because we've been praying that, and the war, there at least has been a ceasefire. There's a lot more to do, and there's a lot further to go. You know, um, but
but
we keep
I mean,
praying. We keep praying.
what would you give as examples of what to pray for if we're talking about justice and the praying and never giving up? What examples would you use?
Okay, so the things that, and actually, so two things for me actually. One is that I remember, so my most visible sign of the need for justice has been when I visited the Philippines and seen children and families living in
Mm,
terrible poverty. And I must admit, I do remember it was probably my second visit there, so I was getting a little bit more. I probably wasn't quite experienced quite the same level of culture shock that I had the first
yeah.
time, and I've obviously been back many times since. But and I remember two things on that visit, and actually it was on the same visit about justice. One was there's got to be justice for this.
Right.
There has to be justice for this. And of course, you know, um, we've talked before about which side of that line do we put ourselves on, of rich and poor and all that kind of things, haven't we? But
Mm.
there's got to be justice for the fact that people are living like this, and actually, that's true because of economic injustice, and never mind, war and the sort of terrible suffering that people are going through under that. So I remember that really striking me. There's got to be justice. And it was on the same trip actually that I remember worshipping in the centre as it was then. It's not the same one as they've got now. It was a I have got a nice place that was, but they had a really quite difficult place, although the kids are still coming from the same situations. And I remember
Okay.
worshipping with these children in this real kind of, it was really kind of tucked away kind of place that was their centre at the time. And that final verse came into my head from this passage: when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? And I thought, yes, if he's going to find it anyway, he's going to find it here. And I remember,
Right.
those are the two things that I think, um,
Mm.
strike me from this passage, and struck me then. Yeah. And so, therefore, who are the chosen ones who cry out to him day and night, for justice, for those
Hmm.
living under oppression, those who are living in poverty, you know, um, and yet those are not, we seem to be living in an interesting time where we don't seem to quite know who those are and who they're not anymore. It seem to be more obvious. It doesn't always seem to be quite so obvious now. You know, when does your
Yes,
when
and I think that's what I've been contemplating really when I talk to a congregation in South Kensington, of who are they in this story? Um, and as I say, I've done a bit of reading, and you could be this and this, and I thought, but we don't seem to be any of those people. We don't. I
well, so you
don't.
could be the widow, or that you could be the
It
unjust
could be the
judge, or
widow, or are you going to be? I can't remember the things, but I kind of just thought they don't fit into any of those categories. Wish I've got it up on screen now, so I could, yeah, um, might be able to do that actually.
but yeah, but it's a story about prayer, isn't it? It's not. Is it about our response, or is it a story? It's told as a parable of persistence in prayer, right?
Yes, to show them that they should always pray and to not give up.
Not lose heart. Yeah. I mean,
That
in
is
one sense,
the.
it's quite a simple. It's not a hugely complicated message. On one level, is it? I'm kind of wondering, and I will be preaching on Sunday, and I'm kind of wondering, where do you want to take this, which isn't kind of the obvious, or what's the angle that you might want to go with it from? And maybe that's what
Well,
you're
that's
asking
why
for.
I'm kind of asking you for examples closer to home, though, of what, because it's all very well kind of saying you need to pray for justice and not give up, but I feel that people need examples of what that actually looks like a lot of the time. Um, and in many ways, it's easier to preach to a congregation that I would say of a higher deprivation level that often feel oppressed, and that it's part of their lifestyle, pray for justice and don't give up. They're, but to preach to a congregation that are comfortable and
Hmm.
wealthy,
Hmm.
I'm not sure what examples I can give them of what they could be preaching about or could be praying about. Um,
Well, I guess you could be preachers that. I mean, we. It's also therefore an appeal to our common humanity. That we are not islands, to quote another poem. But
mhm.
that you know, we if it's unjust for one, it's unjust for all. Justice is something which we should care about wherever we place ourselves in this, and be petitioning God for. Um,
I like that line. If it's unjust for one, it's unjust for all. Okay, I like
and we
that.
join together in that, I guess, don't we, to do that?
Mm.
And the truth is, often it's easy to forget that. But yeah, I think that might be an angle you could take with it. And I think you could build that out of that final verse, really. So when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? I mean, it's a kind of interesting question to leave that Jesus leaves hanging, isn't it, at the end of the passage, or he just another parable, but he just leaves that question hanging there. And so for me, that was my experience. That's what struck me when I remember when I was in Manila that time.
Mm.
Okay, well, if he's going to find it anyway, he's going to find it here. And to be fair, I suppose I'm finding it here. And it's not that we don't find faith anywhere else, but there did seem to be something that
No,
just seemed to struck me
I'd say
about
that
that.
that's a good story. If I was preaching in your context with your experience, I would probably just tell that story because I think
Yeah.
that in itself, I mean, it doesn't always have to be a 3-point sermon, does it? I think that in
No.
itself would actually help and bring home.
And I
Um,
suppose then the challenge is that the challenge to our congregations is he going to find it here? So if
yeah.
it comes to St Margaret's Barking, if it comes to Holy Trinity South Kensington, is he going to find it here? What will it look like to find it here? What will it look like to come to a church and find a place where there is faith and that we're living by faith? And
Oh,
and
you're on
you know,
fire today. What will it look like?
what will it look like here? And I guess you don't necessarily answer that question. But you can certainly pose it. I mean, Jesus
Mhm.
doesn't answer the question here, does he? I guess in a way, although maybe he's inviting us to see the
No,
answer.
I'm not going to answer it. I'm just going to ask them, what would it look like? Is he going to
Yeah,
find it? What does it look like? Um,
yeah, yeah.
I'm writing down now. And one is
Well, you can always listen back, Jenny. You can always listen to it again.
I don't
So
like
I
listening to
guess,
myself.
you know, and then of course he goes on. I don't know if we're doing it next week or not, but goes on to the other parable about the tax collector and the person beating their chest.
We'll be doing next week, won't we?
But I suppose it leads into that, doesn't it? That's all about. But are
Yeah,
you
no,
seeing?
next week is that.
Are you
Let's say
finding
that.
faith this persistent widow? Then
Mhm.
is an example of faith. Then it's not going to give up. And yeah, and I guess coming back to that thing of how much more then, that's a key thing, isn't it? How much more
Mhm.
then? This is not what God, this isn't, Jesus isn't telling us that this is what God is like. Though sometimes I think it's okay to think that it might seem like that. Otherwise, the parable also loses its force, doesn't it? Sometimes it will feel like God's like this. Sometimes it will feel like you're bashing on the door and nothing's happening. But don't be like that. Don't give up, because how much more is God like someone who
Yeah,
actually,
I think you're right. You can say that. I mean, just don't push it too much, otherwise you end up with God, the unjust judge. But but sometimes it does sound as though you feel as though you're just praying and praying and praying
yeah, yeah.
and shouting into the void, really.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, but don't give up. I
but
think Jesus is acknowledging here that sometimes it might feel like that without having to necessarily say that God is like the unjust judge. It might seem like it is, but how much more then will God
mhm.
give, you know? So there's some thoughts, I guess, about the unjust judge and the widow and finding faith. And I guess we
There
pray that
are,
God will find faith with us
and we won't give up.
and we won't give up. Yeah, and there is a faithfulness and a day by dayness about that, which is really important, and we need to remind ourselves of.
There is indeed. Oh, yeah, I could do that too.
There you go.
We could keep going. We could keep going.
Lots of
Let's
thoughts.
stop.
But our time is up, Jenny. So thank you for listening and
Thank you all.
keep going, keep persisting.
Keep the faith. Keep praying.
Take care.
And we'll
Bye
be
bye.
back next week.
We will be back for next week, God willing. Bye bye. Take
Bye
care.
bye.
Thank you for listening to In Conversation with Jenny and Mark. Please subscribe for more episodes on all the usual podcast platforms.